This is episode 1. Tonight I am joined by and with Aelx Erwin, and he's going to be my companion on this hour-long journey into geek culture. And tonight, in particular, we're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics, controversial, the Marvel Universe. And for those of you who have been following the Marvel saga over the last 10 years in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they've gone all over the place, 20-plus films, some of them being amazing, some have been okay, but I think they've actually nailed it pretty much. Aelx has a different view on some of the origin stories, and we're going to get into that too, because he's pretty opinionated about it. So I want to welcome you to episode 1 of the Torvus podcast, and let's get ready and get into it with the Marvel Universe. Okay, so the Marvel Universe. So Aelx, you and I have probably spent more hours talking about this than we probably should have.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so over 10 years ago, started with Iron Man, which was a breakthrough in probably movie history, just the way they did it.
Phenomenal film, yeah.
Amazing film.
Yeah.
I think it's probably one of the best Marvel adaptations. It was great origin story.
So good. The cast, everybody did really well in the film as a whole. The special effects, the character itself, like Tony Stark, really Robert Downey Jr. just filled that role and became that character. So.
Yeah. So when that came out, I remember watching it in the theater and I was like, holy shit, this is like... Because all the superhero films up until that point really have been shitty because, the budgets weren't there and the writing.
They're also kind of separating from that, 70s, 80s kind of campy style superhero, right? Where it's like fun and you're like, pow, slap. And now you're getting more into you see the Dark Knight and these more gritty superheroes that are actually killing people. And there's a lot more real topics sort of talked about. And it's difficult when something starts off as something that's so fun and that, a lot of these concepts aren't necessarily completely thought out from the get-go. These people who originally created these characters didn't necessarily think about, okay, well, what does he do when he gets up every day? Batman's a terrific example, right? I'm a huge Batman fan, right. And I grew up watching the, original... Adam West Batman. Uh-huh. And now you get to the Dark Knight and you start to see that kind of trend, right? So I think what Marvel has done is Marvel has been able to kind of pay homage to that light, I don't know if I want to keep referring it to it, but the POW, the wham, the light version of comics, as well as bring in these real subjects, these real issues, and start to kind of apply them in a way that's believable and entertaining for people of all ages.
So let's rewind, because if you look 1988 or 89 when Batman came out, like the Tim Burton one,
yep.
that was a huge change in comic books, in comic book movies, because it was super dark. Mm-hmm. And Jack Nicholson playing the Joker and all that stuff. And again, that was a shift from the Adam West to something's like, well, what is this?
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's actually really unfortunate that DC hasn't been able to recapture.
go farther than kind of breaking the mold. I know, right? They've really kind of dropped that ball. But you know what? It's okay because, honestly, I'm definitely way more of a Marvel fan to begin with. I think that the heroes, when you have that lighter side, like Spider-Man is just such a dynamic hero. He's so relatable to so many people as opposed to Batman and Superman, which are arguably the biggest DC heroes, right? You have rich billionaire orphan. How many of us fit that suit? Or Kryptonian alien who does everything, they're pretty unrelatable characters unless you, you know what I mean? Yeah. As opposed to Peter Parker, he's this school kid who gets picked on by bullies and he gets this radioactive spider power and he's struggling with managing money, dating, a lot of real world problems that people struggle with themselves, despite not having superhero powers. So I really like how Marvel kind of takes it and makes it relatable to the everyday person and kind of pokes fun at those struggles that you go through at life,
So one of the things, with these relatable characters, there's so many in the Marvel Universe, some more than others, of course. And we're talking about Iron Man being the first movie, and there's 20-plus movies now. And we're on the brink of the Avengers Infinity War. It's going to be released tomorrow. So excited. Super excited. It's going to be really hard to avoid spoilers. I'm not going to look at the internet.
No, my phone's going Wi-Fi airplane mode for sure.
And the problem is I totally want to see the film, but I don't want to be packed into a theater with 700 other people. I kind of want some space, right? You got to hit the right time.
Laughing and kind of I've been to a couple releases. Like I did go to Avengers Infinity War twice. I went the second day it was out with a bunch of people. It was fun because my friends were there, and sometimes it's kind of fun to laugh with the crowd and go through that. But honestly, I prefer a movie where you don't have other hecklers or people yelling at the screen and doing whatever. It kind of distracts from it. I mean, still, I saw it twice. It was phenomenal. I wish I saw it more times in the theater. But, for me, I totally agree. There's no need for me to stand in line and subject myself to that insanity.
Well, hopefully over a week we'll be able to find a time, maybe a matinee when there's not kids in there or something like that. Who knows?
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's the $1 million question for you. Of the Marvel movies that have come out, I want you to list your number 1, 2, and 3 favorite Marvel films.
In order, I'd have to say that my favorite Marvel films are going to be number 1 is Avengers Age of Ultron. Number 2 is going to be Iron Man, the first one. And then number 3 is going to be Doctor Strange.
Wow.
Yeah.
Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Why? Number 1?
Number 1. I really enjoyed it because it brought the Avengers together in the first place.
Okay.
And I had really high expectations for a Avengers, Justice League, when you bring all the gang together, because I watched those cartoons as a kid.
Yeah.
And I got to see the dynamics of the team and how they would break off and do individual character stories. And what I really liked is some of the dynamics that they kind of came up with or evolved in Age of Ultron. You get the whole where Jarvis becomes Vision.
They did that pretty good, actually.
That was very cool.
Yeah.
That was really interesting to me, and it kind of, the whole concept of Ultron as well. Kind of like Skynet, right? He was designed to protect humanity, and then you kind of realize, like, okay, you guys are, maybe I'll just kill you all, and that's the way to solve it, right? So he himself kind of was given an impossible task and kind of was flawed and broken with that. And what's interesting is you also see Vision struggle with the same process a little bit, right? He's struggling to say, am I a machine? Am I a man? What am I? He's got part Infinity Stone in him. He's really trying to find himself as well. And then whereas Ultron kind of came to that conclusion and went in a whole different route and became the villain.
Right.
You get to see Vision struggle with the same question ultimately, right? And this is what I like is if you really look at it, I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but if you really look at these things that they're talking about, they're basically talking about, these advanced machines, super intelligent beings, asking the same question. What's the purpose in life? Why am I here? Why am I created? Imagine that you knew your creator, though, and it was Tony Stark / all these other guys trying to be superheroes, right? That's pretty confusing. So to me, it was just such an interesting concept.
So you really like the kind of philosophical stuff?
I do. And I like it when a villain can be understood a bit. And it's the same thing with Thanos, too. I mean, I guess technically I didn't put Infinity War and Endgame in this bundle because I think Infinity War is the greatest movie I've ever seen of all time. But I'd have to say that Age of Ultron kind of started it off, and they kicked it off, and it was amazing from the get-go.
Okay.
So as far as Age of Ultron and the Avengers being one movie, I gotta go with Avengers, right? I guess Age of Ultron and all the Avengers films.
Okay, so let's just talk about something really controversial in the Age of Ultron.
Right.
How was Vision able to pick up Mjolnir?
Because he's worthy. No, it's that's
why?
Yeah, it's
is he?
I think it's more because he has the what I'd be interested to see. I mean, obviously Mjolnir got smashed before Thanos had a chance to pick it up, but I wonder if it had something to do with the power of the Infinity Stones. I mean, it's the Mind Stone, so I don't know if the Mind Stone was able to trick Mjolnir with the magic. I don't know what they could come up with. But I guess I would maybe see that he is worthy because he does, he is a good guy. He does find his humanity amongst what all these different beings that he is, right? He's a construct of Tony, Banner, Jarvis, and Ultron all mashed together. And I think that he perhaps embodies the best of all those people.
Now, I've seen on the internet I was reading, so it wasn't that he's worthy, it was because he was a machine and he actually didn't have, like, he doesn't have a soul, and so he's just a machine, so it was easy for him to pick it up.
Because the enchantment, so to speak, on Mjolnir just doesn't apply to him because he doesn't fit the criteria.
Yeah, and I think it's bullshit, actually.
I don't know about that. I mean, it's almost, Captain America almost picked it up because he's like almost, I mean, he was a good
in the
guy
comic he did, though.
Yes, exactly, because he is I think it's more about the whole reason, like in the first Thor, the whole reason that Odin put that curse, magic, whatever you want to call it, on Mjolnir to begin with was to teach Thor a lesson.
Totally.
Selflessness, he was running around smashing stuff, going in head first. So Dad had to teach him a lesson. So he put this, curse or whatever it is on Mjolnir so that you had to be worthy to pick it up. So Captain America being selfless, brave, fighting for the meek, the weak, I would understand that's why he would pick it up. Now, Jarvis, I think they just really wanted to play off of how powerful he was. They just wanted to make a statement and be like, don't mess with this guy.
Right.
And that's why in Infinity Wars, they had to have Thanos have some super goblin who could have a weapon that just wrecked him right off the bat. They had to take him out early. Yeah. And then they had to, play off of, he's injured and he's damaged and something happened there, right? So he was so powerful that they had to cut him out. Vision. Yeah, they had to cut him out right early because they needed to somehow get the stone out of his head, and they needed to deal with that obstacle of creating this super powerful being, right?
Because actually in the comic book, Vision is super strong. He's up there in the heavyweights.
Yep.
But one of the things, I don't know if you saw the edited or like the deleted scenes. Did you see the fight with Vision and the Avengers?
No.
You haven't seen that?
No, is that on the?
Yeah, it's on the internet.
Is it after Ultron or Civil War?
No, it happens in the Age of Ultron. Oh. So that whole situation, they end up fighting him
as soon as he gets born or whatever.
Yeah, and it's pretty awesome. It kind of goes into it more than the film shows. So I'm gonna actually cue that up and show you now because I want you to see it.
Okay,
and then we can talk about that and see how you like it.
Awesome.
Okay, so we just watched the deleted scene from Age of Ultron. So you can kind of see that how they were fighting him and stuff like that.
Yeah, very cool. I had never seen that before. I think they should have kept that scene in the movie. I think it shows how when Vision's first created, he's like, imagine just coming out of the womb and having all that knowledge, and you're just reacting to everything that's around you, right? And then he glimpses outside and he sees the outside world for the first time, and it's quite an interesting theory. This artificial intelligence that is so advanced, how is it going to interact with life around us? Because even humanity has no idea how to react to life around it. So it's really cool. He's a really dynamic character, and the film really captured it well.
Okay, so you said that was your first, your favorite.
Yeah.
Now moving on to your second, which is
Iron Man. Yep.
Number one, right?
Yeah, the first Iron Man. Very clear, the first Iron Man. And again, I think that I just have to put that at number 2 because it started everything off, and they started off so solidly, and he really kicked off the franchise and kind of carried the team, so to speak, and kind of filled into more of a leadership role than I would have ever imagined before. Before, he was always he was consulted with, and he brought in cool toys, and he would come and solve some problems, but he's really assumed a huge leadership role in this current MCU.
Well, I would argue that Tony Stark is the primary hero of the MCU.
Exactly. And before, whereas you had the dynamic set up where Cap was supposed to be leading the team. Right? So it's interesting, and I like it. And in a tech-driven world, in a new time where technology is a lot farther along than when these characters were first invented, like the fact that a guy was flying around in an iron suit with blasters was the top tech. Now he's got these little shoulder things that pop out, and he kills like 18 dudes in 3 seconds. Like, boom. Just that would never have happened, right, when he was first created. Right. So the evolution of the character, his mentorship of the new Spider-Man is very cool. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, but
that was a good twist.
It was interesting, and I've seen this before. My little brother, actually, there's a big age gap between us. There's 11 years, so he's watching a lot of the newer cartoons, and he kind of told me about this one called The Ultimate Spider-Man. Yeah. And it is this sort of teenage Peter Parker while the Avengers are going around doing their thing. It changes the character a little bit. I don't 100% know how I feel with it because Spider-Man is very powerful, is very dynamic. character that, again, he's one of my favorites. He fills so many different roles, and he's arguably one of the most powerful Marvel characters ever, while literally just having Spidey sense and swinging from webs. It's insane.
Right.
It's insane. Like, he goes through so much stuff. There's such a huge fan following. They may have overpowered him, some people would say, but he's fantastic. Now him being mentored by Tony and in this tech age is very interesting. I think it opens up a lot of doors for Spider-Man, and you get to see that Peter Parker using his brain to solve problems instead of just swinging around kicking people with quips.
Yeah.
But they still include that, which is great. I think that's crucial to the character, but also, it's a tough, with me, we've had conversations before. I am very strict about origin stories and stuff like that, but it is nice to see characters evolve as technology evolve, as time goes on. You have to open it up for change without being too much of a stickler. But the reason I didn't list Spider-Man Homecoming on my list at all was because they really glanced over the Spidey sense.
Yep.
Peter was constantly just being tuned from things from behind him, surprised. His whole power is he can't be surprised. That's like his whole thing. Like, Spidey sense is going, I'm going to react before any, like, he's got this sixth sense happening, right? So that to me was a big disappointment. They did fix it. They did come back, and he does have that now. Since we saw Infinity War, his hair stand up on his arm on the bus.
Yeah.
I was like, thank God I can get on board with this new Spider-Man.
Well, he just has to mature into his power, right? Maybe
Exactly. And that's how they kind of excused it, because
Totally.
I'm sure they got me and 8 billion other people just freaking out about it, because I was losing my mind the entire movie. I was like, how is he getting hit from behind? What's happening here?
Yeah.
Like, he can lift up buildings when he's 12, but he can't, no spider sense? Like,
So number 2, obviously Iron Man, you said, and number 3, you listed, surprisingly, Doctor Strange.
yes. Now, that's just kind of my own personal preference, and maybe some things I've said before about characters being relatable. Obviously, Doctor Strange being the neurosurgeon who's a billionaire as well as, or millionaire,
Yep.
isn't the best or most relatable. But what I do really like about his character is the magic mixed with martial arts. I think that's very cool.
Yeah.
I'm very into it, even though it's more of a, kung fu type style and sort of these katas that form magic. I'm still into that culture. I'm into the...
Well, ironically, you do like Magic: The Gathering.
Yes,
game,
I do. Yeah,
and
I
you
do.
like martial arts.
I'm super into
So there you
wizards
go.
and magic and all that stuff. And it just leaves so much play with what the character can do, what he can achieve. I love all the stories. Even DC, the stories where you got Constantine and the occult and all the magic things happening. I'm super into that. They can tie in religious things to it. The magic characters really get to delve and kind of go into other areas that allow them, for people who are super nerdy and picky about things like myself, they allow this explanation, oh, it's magic. And I buy it. And maybe that's just me. But that's why I like The Sorcerer Supreme. And that film, Benedict Cumberbatch, was just, again, exactly like Robert Downey Jr. They just nailed it.
Okay, so I'm going to lead into a segment now, and it's called Nailed It or Didn't. Okay? So I'm going to list a character in the MCU, and I want you to go Nailed It or Miss the Mark, essentially. Okay? You ready?
Are we specifically talking about that character, or just the film in general, or...
How they've portrayed the character throughout the Marvel universe. So, so you take it into its totality.
Okay.
For example, if I say Tony Stark, Iron Man.
Yeah, nailed it.
Nailed it. Okay. Doctor Strange.
Totally nailed it.
Bruce Banner.
Personally, I preferred Edward Norton, but that I know it's very strange. Very strange. I know. It's not a lot of people's common belief, but I was super on board when he did it, and I really liked the mental aspect where he would go through learning breathing exercises, and he was trying to train to. At first, it was to suppress the beast. And then it was to sort of start to control the beast. That's where we left off Hulk. And again, it kind of ties in, kind of doesn't, because they did the character change.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't pick up the same character, though. Like, Mark Ruffalo is not Edward Norton. And I'm talking about that Bruce Banner in the first Hulk and Bruce Banner in the Avengers. Not the same Bruce Banner. The Bruce Banner in the Avengers is still trying to repress being the Hulk. He doesn't want the monster to come out. We left Edward Norton learning to control, to develop, to start to understand the Hulk and kind of bridge that gap and be able to...
So would you say that the Edward Norton character is more true to the comic book of what Bruce was trying to do, or Mark Ruffalo's character?
I think it depends on the time. Because obviously there was a phase when Banner was freaked out by it and didn't want and was trying to suppress it. But then and even now Bruce is starting to Ruffalo is starting to develop it, and he wants it, right? He obviously wants to be the Hulk to go beat up Thanos, but now Hulk's having his own PTSD problem, which I haven't fully figured out or got on board with yet. But I think that I just would have preferred to see a character who was trying to control the Hulk, and then the Hulk and him could have more of a dynamic relationship, which they got to, and he's here now, but it took the Hulk having PTSD to kind of get there.
And I think that's what they're going to do in Endgame. I think they'll have like a reconciliation where it's like they're ready. Either they'll merge and it will be like one or something. I know that they're going to fix that because, as you know, they haven't had a individual Hulk story since the MCU has really gone on.
They technically include the first Hulk with Edward Norton because Robert Downey Jr. shows up at the end in the credits there, but yeah.
But I watched the Russo brothers and they were talking about it, and they actually purposely did that, and they had the Hulk develop through the other movies.
Yes.
And I think they did that really well. And I really like Mark Ruffalo. I think he brought a different dynamic to Bruce Banner. He made him a little bit more wimpy and comical and whimsical.
I found that wimpy side too, which I never found from the original comics. Like I didn't think he was as much of a pushover or as timid.
It's true. He wasn't in the comic. I mean, the Hulk was one of my favorite comics. I collected huge. They're in the garage right now. Loved it, but I really like what they did with Mark Ruffalo because it made him more of a character and super likable, and also something you wouldn't have to be like, oh, let's just get rid of Bruce Banner and bring the Hulk, please. That's what I thought was cool.
And they did make him, I guess, more relatable to, a modern day scientist who understood the universe around him and understood his limits within it. And, it does make sense for that character. It was just the Bruce Banner he always kind of knew the Hulk was there, I felt like. And he always tried to, he was a force to be reckoned with himself in this one. And we may see this coming out. And we kind of saw it in Infinity War when he donned the suit, and the Hulk Smasher suit.
Yeah.
And the Hulk Buster. And he was...
I love it when he goes, screw you!
Yeah, that's what it feels like. He's getting into being beaten up by it. So it's a fun dynamic. And again, in Thor Ragnarok, the interaction between the Hulk and Bruce was that he was locked in the trunk. He's had this moment. He's had that where it comes out, and now he's got to face it. Yeah. So it was just for me, obviously a minor hiccup, a minor detail, because the Hulk, the first movie itself, was a little bit of a wash. The love story, everything like that. It didn't quite come together. But I did like Edward Norton as the Hulk. I did like the Bruce Banner aspect of that Hulk character. He's using his mind. He's trying to come up with theories to deal with the Hulk. That's what I think that Bruce Banner would actually do instead of this, I'm not going to do it.
And Hickson Gracie was in that film.
Yes. He was the guy teaching him to breathe, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, they were doing the yoga breathing.
With the stomach going? Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So, see, the listeners out there, so we disagree. So he likes Edward Norton. Alex is into that. I like the Mark Ruffalo. In the comments in the YouTube section, please let me know which one, who's right here. Okay, so nailed it, didn't nail it. So you didn't think that they nailed that very well. How about Mr. Lang, Ant-Man?
I'm going to say nailed it because, I think it's okay to have a more childish kind of character. And if you're going to do it, Ant-Man is the guy.
Well, the funny thing is that there's no reference. They really changed that end, the whole Hank Pym thing, and it's quite different. And we don't really have a point of reference for his character in the comics like that, so we can't say. So I think it's a good comic relief.
Exactly, and it does well to bridge maybe the younger kids if you're trying to get them into superheroes. You don't want to toss them right into this MCU universe where people are getting blown up and dying, depending on the parenting styles, the age of the kids, whatever. My little brother was a very sensitive fella. I can't remember. We took him to see Wall-E for the first time in theaters. Wrecked him. He was crying. He took him a couple of years to get used to theaters again. So
what's Wall-E?
It's a Disney movie about the little robot. It's very for kids.
Okay.
But there was enough there. I get it. There's enough there for some people for them not to get into it. And I don't want to close doors off to people just to make things hardcore.
So I'm just going to stop you right now, and you cannot drop any references that are millennial references on this podcast.
Gotcha.
Okay. You need to go fuck yourself.
Wall-E, that's like it's like 10
I don't know what Wall-E is. Yeah. So I'm going to start referencing a whole bunch of 70s and 80s stuff for you.
What? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So we did that. How about Scarlett Johansson and the Black Widow? Nailed it or not?
I'm gonna say nailed it.
Okay. Then how about Hawkeye?
I guess nailed it, but it's Hawkeye, so it's like it doesn't matter. Like whatever. I honestly,
You think he's like a?
It's kind of like
In
Hawkeye
character?
and Green Arrow and this whole thing. Like, are they really? No, they're not badasses. They use like there's better shit. Like you guys are humans using bows. Like, and you're playing with these super mega heroes. Like, just. Stop. Just stop.
Stop.
Oh, I'm gonna like taser vision, and that's gonna hold him down for a second. Like, oh no, just stop.
Okay.
Like, Black Widow does it very well. Black Widow's character, you can get on board with using the intelligence, the smart. Hawkeye's like, oh, I'll just hit him with this like arrow. No, you can't just use an arrow to solve all your problems, buddy. Like, there's gotta be more than just arrows. You know, like that's how I feel about Hawkeye and Green Arrow. Both of them. Blah.
Okay, we don't talk about DC. DC universe. Okay, next one. Let's go and talk about the strongest Avenger.
Oh yes,
Thor.
Point Break. You mean
Point Break?
Yeah.
Sorry, Point Break.
Yeah, no, Thor. I think they totally nailed it. I think Chris does a fantastic job. I really like how he also took a stand and said, no, well, I want to have some input on Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And I really like how it changed because in the first one, it was really well done, but they were still kind of playing with that. How are they going to portray him? And the costume, the effects, they weren't quite up to par yet.
Yeah.
I think he needed more. They needed those later movies to really develop, like his suit now, his, even with his cut hair, I don't know, I think the whole eye patch, eye loss thing was kind of dumb. That was a little bit of a fumble.
Yeah.
It was cool that they did it.
Yeah.
And then the next movie, Rocket's like, here's a new eye. And it was like, okay, like, did they just, I don't know what they were doing there. It seemed like an unnecessary thing. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I think he's had nothing but amazing impact on the character. And
well, it's funny that you say it takes movies to develop a character.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I think I told you this I think I was talking to you. We were talking about Captain Marvel, and they filmed Endgame before they filmed Captain Marvel. So there's a lot of spoilers that have come out talking about the Endgame, and like, oh, she looks different, and what's her character? The thing is she filmed that. She didn't have any point of reference.
Right.
She didn't have her own film yet.
Yeah.
So that's why you kind of, there's probably an awkwardness in the film.
it's difficult.
I don't know.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be thrown into the finale
Totally.
as a character for the first time. Like that's a huge obstacle.
Okay, so let's go into kind of the more obscure characters. So when the Guardians of the Galaxy came out, I knew nothing about the Guardians of the Galaxy. I did not read the comics. I didn't know I did nothing.
Right.
I knew about Drax the Destroyer. That was probably it. And then when it came out, pleasantly surprised. Amazing film. I thought I had so much fun watching that.
Yep.
So what do you think of Rocket as a character? Nailed it or not?
Totally nailed it. Absolutely.
Here's a hard one. Groot.
Yeah, I honestly, they totally nailed Groot. And the thing that I think that they may have potentially missed a little bit, which I enjoy with the change that they've made, but if I'm going to be a diehard, the Guardians of the Galaxy were more that merc. They were more that mercenary style, and they try and play on it a little bit by being like, yeah, we're going to go save this person, but only if they give us money. And then they never end up doing anything for money. They never seem to, like, Rocket kind of steal stuff, but they're like, that's bad. But they honestly, they were a little more of that chaotic good alignment, so to speak, whereas this one, they're basically just neutral good. They flirt with the chaotic part. In the comics, they were chaotic.
Wow.
So that's how I would say, and how I would talk about the difference between the MCU Guardians and the comics.
Well, so I'm going to throw a number out to you that's pretty crazy. So you know who played the voice of Groot, right?
Vin Diesel, yeah.
Yes. Do you know how much he was paid?
For the I am Groot and then we are Groot lines that he probably had to say. Do you think here's a question. Do you think that he had to say each line each time?
Yes. I don't think that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it's obviously different, right? There's an influx or like they stretch it out or not.
I am Groot. I am Groot.
Yeah, okay,
right?
Yeah,
See the difference? Look at the depth of my acting there. Wasn't that amazing?
Right, yeah, you could do it. Yeah, let's get you in there for the Groot spin-off series.
Okay, here we go. Vin Diesel is reported. Oh, Siri, go away. Okay, so Vin Diesel was reported to have been paid $54 million for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That's an outstanding figure.
That's amazing.
Well, when you think about it, he doesn't even have like anything like that. But I think
did he have to wear a suit? I mean,
no,
for Guardians 1.
I don't even know if he was
like
doing the live
motion
capture.
capture
I don't know if
that?
he was the actor that even did it.
I mean, obviously not Guardians 2 because maybe Baby Groot if he's jumping around.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I think that number is also because I think all the actors in their contract have stakes in, how much that generates and stuff like that. So which would make sense. So how about Star-Lord? Nailed it?
And this is the thing, because he kind of drives how they act, and I do really enjoy Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. It's different. It is different. Mm-hmm. So I am going to note the difference, but I'm also going to say nailed it. Like, it's one of those more natural evolutions where he is... I like that fun side of things. Like, he's the guy who kind of keeps it fun, him and Rocket. I mean, Rocket's a little more of the hardcore fun, and his character is edgy, and he does do chaotic stuff. But I believe that Quill was kind of the guy. He's more neutral good.
Okay.
He's kind of taking them in a little different direction.
Wow, you really dropped a D&D reference. That's amazing.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
awesome.
But still nailed it. Still nailed it. Yeah. I still give a nailed it to that.
How about Gamora? Nailed it or not? Don't explain it. Just either yes or no.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Okay. Drax.
I'm going to say no, because they changed his character after the first one. They seem to make him just stupid. He's just like tying himself to like outside the ship, and he's getting smashed around. And he's just laughing. Like, they made him really dumb. And he's he's from a warrior culture, so it was a little insulting, to just kind of say like, oh well, he's just an idiot. Like, no, like things can go over his head, and he can't understand sarcasm or whatever it was, irony or whatever. Nothing would go over my head. I would catch it. That's there's funny lines, but they literally changed that. They took that aspect, and they're like, okay, well now we can just make this guy like stupid,
the buffoon,
exactly. And he was just and it was too much comic relief for me, and such an awesome character.
Okay, how about Cap? Chris Evans.
Nailed it up until Civil War. I am not a fan of the Infinity War, dark, brooding, I'm going to put a pale star on my chest, Captain America.
Yeah.
But the actor is phenomenal. I like all the movies leading up to it. Just after Civil War, and including Civil War, it kind of fell apart for me.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a lot of characters we could keep going about that, because I'm just kind of curious. So you kind of gave your 3 movies that you liked. I'm going to give you mine. Yeah. I'm going to see if you agree or disagree. Well, obviously you're going to disagree because they're going to be different.
I mean, let's hear them.
Okay, so number one film that I absolutely enjoyed, which is going to be no shocker to you, was Thor Ragnarok.
Of course, yeah.
One of the best times I've had in a movie. I literally was sitting there grinning, and I was like, this is amazing. I kept in my mind, I'm like, this is amazing. Oh, this is amazing. Because they're merging the Hulk story, when I know they were mixing things together, but I like the comedy. I love how the director was able to do that. A lighter side, amazing. So, super good. And they used Led Zeppelin in the film, the Immigrant Song, in a way that was just like, every time I hear that now, I'm going to go smash motherfuckers.
Yeah, you're transported there,
it's awesome. So good. So that's my first, for sure. Second, I would have to say the first Avengers. When we watched that, I was with Jason and Regan. There's a group of us, and we saw a midnight showing. I remember they opened the theater especially for us because we knew the guy who owns the theater. And we watched it, and that was the first time that we were able to see all these heroes come together, which is a really big thing, because you got to remember, growing up in the 70s and 80s, you're reading these comics, and all of a sudden on the screen, it's not cheesy, it's big budget, hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah. And it was such a good time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what kind of movies are about. Like, if you go to a movie and having a good time, the director, they've nailed it. So that was probably my second, my favorite. And then the third, I'd have to say Iron Man as well, because that started it all. And I remember watching that and I'm going, oh, wow, look at the technology. Because the CGI and everything about that, I'm like, wow.
The AC/DC kind of became my thing. It was like, so good. So good.
Yeah, so good. Yeah. And the amazing thing about movies, which I think is super underrated, is soundtracks and songs. Mm-hmm. You can make a scene awesome or totally crappy by what music you're playing or the score that you're playing.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm a huge fan of scores. Like, I collect scores of films. Like, I like soundtracks of films, but I like the score And the score obviously being the not the singing and the popular, the AC/DC, it's just the background music.
Exactly.
Love it.
Yep.
So those are my top three. And I think Marvel's heading in a great direction. We're now coming to the end of Phase 4. And they're bringing everything together in Endgame. I'm really looking forward to watching it. I was going to ask you, what do you think is going to happen? But obviously, if we put this up and we go see it, it's going to be there's no point, right?
No. There's so many different outcomes and theories and things that left it open.
And I had actually said, it's like, well, you know what I think they're going to do? I think they're going to introduce Galactus and I have my theory, of course.
Right.
So, I mean, we have no idea what's going to happen in Endgame. And the one thing I want to ask you as we kind of tie this all together is, after Phase 4 is done, after the Endgame's done, after we go watch it, what do you think Marvel's going to do? How do you think it's going to continue?
I really hope to see more of the Spider-Man that they're currently going with. I really like the potential there. It'll be interesting to see if they do like a new Avengers, and I have no idea, honestly, because I think at this point you get confliction between the cartoons, because apparently the cartoons have Iron Fist and other characters like that involved with Spider-Man and Power Man, so they're kind of combining the Defenders into this new Avengers thing, but have Netflix having driven that straight into the ground. Obviously, that's not going to go anywhere. Don't need to get you going on that one, but I don't know. Honestly, I honestly hope Spider-Man keeps going. I hope to see more out of Doctor Strange, but they're probably going to retire. I don't know. It's
because I've heard they've actually, because all the actors, they've come to the end of their contract. They have no more. Although Chris Hemsworth did say that he'll keep playing Thor as long as people want him to play Thor, but I think they're gonna start introducing things like the Inhumans and God, what did they say? It was some kind of obscure group that they wanted to bring to the MCU.
Oh, okay.
But I think that's what's going to happen, because these guys and gals are aging out.
And they've sold us on it. We're gonna show up. We're gonna watch whatever they could bring up, some that I've never heard of even. And you're damn straight, I'm gonna show up and watch it. Yeah. I think what they've done is they've gone the main players now, and they've opened it up to really start diving into some more of those occult, kind of more fan favorites.
Yeah,
and potentially characters that are not as well known.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look what Disney had bought Sony, so they now have the rights to the X-Men.
Yeah,
they have the rights to Deadpool. So they can literally. Unfortunately, it came too late, but they could merge them. You could have X-Men versus the Avengers.
Yeah,
you know, if they had done that 5 years ago, it would have been the biggest thing ever.
Oh, you know what I'm going to maybe throw out there as a potential is the Spider-Man, the Secret War, where Storm makes an appearance, and they throw in the X-Men into it, and he's kind of leading the team, and they're all being tested.
Right.
That would be crazy. I would love to see that. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, like I said before, and it would be great if because I like the character, and I feel like if they cut him off here, he hasn't had enough time, and they started a young guy.
They'll keep him.
I feel like they're going to keep going.
They
with
will.
It. Yeah, for sure.
Now, one of the things about the Infinity War, which is really interesting, is this is really a rehash. So when the Infinity War came out, I don't know in the comics how long ago that was.
I'm not
what
sure,
would you say?
I'm
10 years maybe?
Yeah.
But this all goes back to an original, the Secret Wars. Did you ever read the Secret Wars? Do you know anything about the Secret Wars stuff?
I just knew a brief bit with Spider-Man. That's about it.
So the original Secret Wars, there were Secret Wars and Secret Wars 2, right? And so the original Secret Wars, which happened in the 80s, was basically a powerful being got all the superheroes together, and they had to fight each other. Mm-hmm. And that was like the first time it's like, oh, it's a battle royal. This is nuts.
Yeah.
And then Secret Wars 2, which I really liked, introduced a character by the name of the Beyonder.
Right.
And the Beyonder was pretty much godlike.
Yeah.
You know, super, like it required everyone in the Marvel universe to end up fighting him, to end up kind of banishing him. And we're talking about super heavyweight players, everyone from like Death to Galactus, like everybody.
Yeah. All the villains were like, oh man, this guy's running the show. We got to team up.
Yeah. And so Doctor Doom is together with the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, and they're like, we got to stop the Beyonder, and then Molecule Man. And great series if you've ever read it. Highly suggest that you do pick it up. You can find them in massive graphic novels now. So That's kind of like what Thanos ended up being because, snap my fingers, have the Infinity Gems. I'm the most powerful being, that type of thing. So it's kind of like a rehash, and I think they just kind of go through that because it's a new generation of people reading. Yeah. And, some of the stories are new and some of them are just rehashed. Here's a question for you that I want to ask. In the Infinity War, we see Thanos and the Hulk fight each other.
Yes.
And the Hulk gets his ass
well
handed to him.
He starts off strong, but then, it's quickly reversed.
How does he start off strong?
He starts off beating him up.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he comes out of the gate swinging. He's like, "Well, we've got a Hulk," and then he comes in and he starts.
Nothing happens.
No. He tunes him up a couple times.
Nothing. No. Did you watch the same film as I did?
I did. Yes, sir.
That's like having a baby attack you, and you're like, "Are you done now?" Right?
He was bleeding.
Who was bleeding?
Wasn't Thanos bleeding?
No. No. Basically, he gets hammered a couple times, and then obviously Thanos is a much better fighter.
Well,
right?
he uses skill to defeat the power, and he also is very strong. I think at that point he only had the 2 Infinity Stones, because I think he just added the space one.
Okay.
I don't know if he just got it from Loki or not. I have to rewatch. But either way, he's got 1 or 2, and the Hulk comes out, and you can kind of see, because it's got the power, the purple one.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see strength-wise, they're almost equally matched, and I think that's what that initially, when the Hulk came out swinging and pounding him, because remember his sons or whatever were going to jump in, and then the wizard guy says,
and he goes, let me have his fun.
Let him have his fun, yeah. And then he turns it around and starts kicking his ass.
Okay.
So the Hulk came out, starts hitting him, and he kind of caught him off guard, the surprise attack, and then Thanos gets into his rhythm and he uses martial arts to solve the problem.
Right. And so here's the thing. So it showed me, number one, that Thanos is a way better fighter than the Hulk.
Oh, yeah.
Number two, it showed me that Thanos was as powerful or as strong as the Hulk.
With an Infinity Stone.
Oh, so here's the question. Was it the Infinity Stone allowing him to do that? Or is it just his natural power?
Okay, I think that if he didn't have the Infinity Stone, it would have been more difficult, but he still would have been able to at least hold his own. Or, I think at the end of obviously my mind is swayed because of the martial arts aspect. Like the skill, right. Timing beats speed strength. And precision beats strength, right? I believe that because he's so calculated and meticulous with everything that he does, including the way that he fights, that he would get the upper hand against the Hulk.
Okay.
So...
But here's the thing about the Hulk, and change my mind, internet, but the Hulk is one of the most powerful beings in the MCU for strength, right?
Yes.
He really is.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, not on a galactic scale, but on,
just
that
muscle.
Scale.
Yeah,
muscle.
Exactly.
So, when I think the Hulk was strangling Thanos, and Thanos puts his hands on the outside and peels the Hulk's hands away. And I'm like... We're talking about like a class 100 strength thing.
Yep.
And he's enraged.
Yep.
So he's stronger.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like, I'm going to punch him in the ribs and then chop him in the neck. And then the Hulk is like, ow, that hurt.
Yeah.
Smashes him, lifts him up.
Well, that's the power. He has the power. And I think it's important, too, the stone that he has.
Okay.
Because the purple stone is the power stone. And that's from the Guardians of the Galaxy when, when Quill held it for a second there. And because he's part Celestial or whatever.
Yeah.
Which they totally just deleted, but... another thing.
Immortal.
He was part Celestial.
Was it Celestial?
Yeah,
or
his
Immortal?
Dad was a Celestial that had that in the planet, and then when they killed his dad, he wasn't that anymore. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I think the Power Stone, because just it being the Power Stone, has a sense of strength and might with it. Yeah. If he had the Mind Stone or something else, he may have had to do it in a different way. But I think purely just because you could tell that stone started glowing and he was just, boom, it's on, right?
Right.
So I think it was him being able to tap in and use that Infinity Stone to its full potential with the gauntlet, and not have it consume him. Like, if the Hulk, I don't think if the Hulk,
who's the Hulk?
If the Hulk can't hold an Infinity Stone, because that would destroy him, because it's like any other being who isn't celestial or super powerful like that. Then Thanos being able to use it is what gave him the edge to dispatch him with such ease.
Got it. Okay. So there's our kind of review of the MCU and what Alex thinks is the most important ranked movies in his opinion, and obviously mine. So Marvel's done a great job. However, back in the day, they didn't do a great job. So I'm going to introduce Alex to a couple of clips and movies that he has not seen. So, have you ever seen the original Captain America?
Nope, I have not.
Have you ever seen the original Fantastic Four?
I have.
The original.
Oh, maybe not. I don't know.
So you're thinking the original with like Jessica Alba?
Yeah, Jessica Alba. Yeah.
And Chris Evans.
That was terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was terrible.
That was terrible.
But there's
one before that?
Oh, there's an 80s
Oh,
one.
no, I have not seen that.
There's an 80s one. They didn't have a budget to turn the Human Torch into flame, so he would just make things turn on fire.
Just light things on
Yeah,
fire.
and then Mr. Fantastic, because they didn't have a budget for any of the
Stretching?
his stretching, they would put like his hand would come out, and then the camera would follow his hand, right? And so it would just like
He would be just moving. He'd just be like shuffling along.
yeah, he was shuffling along, and it's like,
God.
look, it's across the room, and he's grabbed the beer, and then they just show the hand holding the beer, and it moves across, and it comes back, and then he's holding the beer, and it's like, you know,
Oh, man, that's funny.
so bad. So I'm going to show you a couple clips.
Okay, let's check it out.
And I'm going to show you why the 70s and 80s are so absolutely remarkable. And people have to remember the origins of all this hilarious stuff. So stand by. Okay, Alex, we just watched the Fantastic Four 1994 movie. Amazing clip. We didn't watch the whole movie. You don't have to, trust me. So... listening audience, your job is to search the Fantastic Four 1994 movie, and you will see some remarkable special effects. Mr. Fantastic, I told you that arm thing.
Yeah, that was pretty
Awesome.
good.
How was the thing?
Oh, he was horrifying.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was it covered
Truly
in?
magnificent. I don't
It's
know.
covered
It
in
was like
styrofoam?
rubber. Yeah, it was like the thing from the Black Lagoon. Same kind of special effects there, whatever that was.
So we're watching that, and then I played him the clip of the 1979 Captain America movie, and which is so good and so bad. See, I'm totally into these horrible films because I don't know why. I just am. And that's kind of the crux of the centerpiece of the Torvus podcast. It's like, hey, what horrible films out there that have shaped me into the person I am? So in 1979, when this came out, it's off from Marvel and it's awesome. So Captain America had a plastic clear shield riding a sport bike, and his mask was a bike helmet.
With some kind of like goggle visor thing that kind of changed throughout it. It was interesting, yeah. So you get bugs in your eyes, I guess? I don't know.
It's so good. And I love it how the bad guys always stand in front of the superhero and they have the switchblade and they're like, and then it's like, you and me, pal.
And then they just stand there, like it's just, I'm going to hit him with the back swing of the shield.
Oh,
and
yes.
You're just going to stand there for 5 minutes as we show the shield going back.
Yeah,
oh,
so
it's awesome.
Watch the clip. So Captain America takes his shield and he throws it into the air. And the bad guy was like, oh, you missed me. And it's like a boomerang and it comes back and it's on these strings. And it's like... Bonk.
And it hits him, and it's like with all the force of a plastic shield, completely like bounces off of him as this guy just goes down. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. So Marvel has had some horrible films over the years. So those are just two, and they have a Spider-Man. They have a ton. I don't know if you've seen them all.
Well, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was enough for everybody, I think. But
true. Even before that, they actually have the TV show one, which I'm going to show you now because that one's awesome.
Yep.
And then the original Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby. Do you remember that it was like a TV show in the 70s?
I think my dad has shown me some of that. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So Lou Ferrigno, the bodybuilder,
Yes.
he plays the Hulk and he's
Yep.
got the bad wig. So there's a TV movie that they did years later, which was the Hulk and Thor team
I've
up.
not seen that. Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to show you those two, and I want to get your reaction.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Alex and I just watched two trailers. One for the Hulk and Thor 1988 TV movie with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. So that's one that you need to search on the internet right now. And the other one we watched was the 1977 Spider-Man movie, the first time on the big screen. Alex actually really liked that.
I think
one.
I have a new favorite. I think it's going to take, I don't know if it's number 1 slot, but it definitely deserves an honorable mention because that was amazing. That was so good.
So the best is when Spider-Man, if you watch the trailer, he uses his webs, and you see him put his wrist out, and you see the webs come out, but they didn't have the technology, so it just looks like a whole bunch of like Halloween cobwebs.
Yeah, like they put in their front yard for like the spiders and stuff. Yeah, it's exactly the same
and
stuff.
It falls on the bad guys, and they're like, I can't move.
It's webbed up. Yeah, it's so good.
And the best part of that trailer is when Spider-Man's trying to climb the building, or he does climb the building, but they have a wire attached to him, and they're pulling him up the building, and then he's just like his hands and feet are kind of touching, but he's moving up.
It was believable. I thought it was good.
Yeah, so your homework, listening audience, is to check out these two as well. So there is a ton of amazing things on the internet, and we're going to keep digging them up for you to look at, and I'll be giving references, and you'll see in the video. We'll put clips down there, so pretty fun. So, Alex, I want to thank you for sitting down with me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great,
So, sitting around just talking about Marvel, and next time we'll probably get into something else, I'm sure. So, if you have any questions or comments, just leave them down in the comment section of the YouTube page here. And remember, the Torvus podcast is found, we have an Instagram page, which is Torvus_podcast, and that's where we'll be releasing information. Eventually, we're going to be releasing the podcast on different mediums, such as SoundCloud and stuff like that. But right now, it's just on YouTube. So, super cool. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Okay, until next time.